and welcome to the Real Truth channel. Today we're going to be examining the ICC, or the International Criminal Court. Now, this was brought about in 1998-99 with the Rome Statute. This is the main tenet that was ratified in 2002 and became law. This deals with four crimes, really. It deals with genocide, which is to kill or displace. It deals with war crimes, which is to torture or murder your own citizens. It deals with crimes against humanity. This involves chemical weapons, killing civilians and journalists. And acts of aggression, any acts of aggression by which you stage something so that you can then use that as an excuse for self-defense, which, let's face it, all wars are about. It cannot go after war crimes committed before its inception, very strangely. And yet Nazis were hunted for decades afterwards by Simon Wiesenthal and the band of Mossad. The thing that you have to look at here is, although we had Nuremberg trials, they are not ideal. That saw most brought to justice, apart from some who managed to secure cushy jobs in the US of A. So not exactly brilliant. We then had the tribunal system failure, which mainly dealt with Cambodian uprising in 75, Rwanda in 94, and Bosnia in 91. And indeed, if it had not been for Vietnam's intervention, the Cambodian crisis would not have finished in 1979. They tried to prosecute people, and the downfall of that tribunal system was the fact that they were trying to deal with it in 1997, and it didn't work too well. Anyway, back to the ICC, which was then formed to make sure that we could bring war criminals to justice. 120 countries joined, 21 abstained, and 7 voted against it. And there's an odd one here. We had China, Iraq, Libya, Qatar, Yemen, Israel voted against it, and the USA, which was strange because they were a primary drafter of the legislation for this. But they turned around and said that the prosecutions could be politicised. And so it has proved. So they were right in that. There are various people who abstained, of course. Every single one of the 26 cases it has brought since its inception are against African leaders. They're heavily criticised, of course, because this smacks of British, American and French imperialism from the old days, and it does have some merit. And we'll go into that in a moment. There's only been one from Europe, and that's for Vladimir Putin, which is quite significant, I think. There is a new prosecutor put in charge every 9 years as chief prosecutor. The British barrister Karim Khan is the current incumbent, and we have to say, when we look at it, why just Putin? And it is very strange that it is just Putin. When you go genocide to kill or displace, there's no doubt whatsoever, that killing or displacement of eastern Ukrainians was committed, people in the Donbass, by Ukraine. That is quite bizarre. What is even more bizarre is that Vladimir Zelensky was actually giving a speech from that building and was not arrested. You can see where this is going, can't you? War crimes, torturing or murdering your own citizens. Well, in the Ukraine, they were doing that for 8 years. There is no question whatsoever. There are mountains and mountains of evidence, including from Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International. Crimes against humanity, chemical weapons, your own civilians, obviously. You should not target civilians, and you should not target journalists. Well, the Ukrainians have a website on which they have a kill list for these journalists. And indeed, 1 or 2 of them have already been murdered. And many of them, including in Poland, where they have arrested one. And at this time of making this video, Gonzalo Lira is still being held by the Ukrainian authorities. In fact, the Spanish gentleman who's been held by the Polish has been held for 18 months without trial and without charges, which is absolutely crazy. And one would ask why the ICC have done nothing at all about this. We also then have to look at crimes of aggression. Well, I would say crimes of aggression would be removing leaders from countries organising coups and riots. That would definitely be up there with it. So why are we not looking at the United States for this? I'll tell you why we're not looking at them. Because the United States and Russia are not signatories to the ICC. That's fine. But then you look that they've sent out an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin when they are not signatories to this ICC court. Uh, you have to ask why they have not then done so for America when you consider the amount of work the National Endowment for Democracy has done in overthrowing governments by causing what they call popular uprisings, by giving millions and millions, and in some cases billions of pounds to have governments that they don't want in charge of that country removed, fomenting coups. In fact, there has been 2 coups in Ukraine in the last 10 years. So it is, without doubt, an absolute political and useless body, and really shouldn't be. It has no effect whatsoever. China haven't signed up to it. Israel haven't signed up to it. Russia haven't signed up to it, and neither have the United States of America. So what power does it have? None really, and the politicization of it has been absolutely shown to be correct. And as a body, it neither has any relevance, certainly not for people who believe in fairness for all. It is done and is defunct. And I don't know if you agree with me, but I think the ICC court is, and for everything and the money that's been ploughed into it to build this up and make it, is absolutely shocking. The fact that Karim Khan allowed this warrant to go ahead for Vladimir Putin, even though they're not signatories to the ICC, just shows you how far and how politicised this body that was meant to be fairness and justice for all has gone. I am not saying that there are not people out there that have committed war crimes whatsoever. What I'm saying is, if you have war crimes for one, you have to have war crimes for everybody. If you have acts of aggression to overthrow governments, then you are responsible for that too. If you have journalists being targeted and killed, and civilians deliberately being targeted, and then you have the gentleman who's done that or has overseen that in your building giving a speech, you no longer have any relevance or any authority over anything. Thank you for listening.